This is Atlas, broadcasting live from Station F. If my voice has found its way to you, then somewhere in the midst of all this chaos, you're still holding on. I won't ask where you are or how you've managed to survive, because if you're here, then you've already proven yourself. The world has changed, and you've changed with it. The fires didn't ask permission when they came, and they certainly didn't wait for us to adjust. The land is charred, the skies are blackened, and the air itself feels like it's turned against us. These aren't isolated incidents anymore. The infernos have become a way of life, a backdrop to everything that remains. But let me tell you something important. Even as the flames consume what they touch, they haven't taken everything. Not yet. They haven't taken you, and as long as you're listening, there's a chance, maybe a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. I started this broadcast to reach the ears of those who might still be out there. At first, it felt like shouting into the void, but the truth is, the void listens. Every word, every transmission, it's a reminder that somewhere, someone else is alive. That's why I'm here. Not because I have all the answers, but because every voice matters, even in the end. Right now, I'm speaking to you from what's left of a safe zone. It's temporary, like everything else. The fire doesn't leave much behind, but for now, I have walls that don't burn and a roof that holds the ash at bay. These broadcasts are a lifeline, not just for you, but for me as well. As long as I'm talking, I know I'm still breathing. You might be wondering what drives someone to sit behind a microphone and send their voice into the unknown. The answer's simple. If I didn't do this, the silence would win. The fires are loud enough as it is. Their roar, their crackle, the way they consume everything they touch. This voice is something different. Something that reminds us we're still here, still human. I don't know where you're listening from. Maybe you're huddled in the remains of a basement, surrounded by walls that reek of smoke. Maybe you're out in the open, with nothing but a blanket of ash covering the ground and the sky burning above you. Wherever you are, know this, you're not alone, not as long as this frequency reaches you. The world outside has become a furnace, but we are still its stubborn embers, refusing to go out. Every breath we take is an act of defiance. Every step we take is a testament to our will to survive. The fires want to consume everything, but they can't consume us, not entirely. I've seen what happens when people lose hope. I've seen the way despair creeps in, how it smothers faster than any smoke. It starts with doubt, a tiny ember of fear that grows until it's a blaze all its own. That's why I'm here, speaking to you, even if it's only a whisper above the chaos. Hope doesn't just keep you alive. It reminds you why you're fighting to stay that way. We've lost so much already. The cities we built, the homes we cherished, the memories that once felt permanent, they're all gone or going. But what we've lost doesn't define us. What defines us is what we do with what's left. We don't get to rewrite the past, but we do get to decide what comes next. I don't have the luxury of seeing your faces, but I know you're out there. I know because I can feel it, the way a flicker of flame feels the pull of oxygen. You're listening, surviving, adapting. That's all it takes to be part of this, to be part of something bigger than just the fires and the fear. The fires might seem unstoppable, but so are we. The world may be unrecognizable, but it's still our world, and we're still its people. No amount of ash or flame can take that away. We've seen the worst of it, and yet here we are, enduring. If you're still tuned in, if you're still hearing these words, then I need you to know one thing: you matter. Your survival matters. Every breath you take, every step you manage, every choice you make, it all matters. You're not just fighting for yourself, you're part of something larger. A network of survivors, scattered but unbroken, listening in the dark. This is Station F, and this is what we do. We endure, we resist, we survive. Keep listening, keep breathing. There's more to come. There's always more to come. Let's get straight to it. If you're near the Midwest, particularly anywhere on the Kansas plains, you need to be moving now. A fire surge has been reported, and it's moving faster than anything I've ever seen. The winds are pushing embers ahead of the main blaze, igniting dry grass and buildings before you can even react. This isn't a slow burn creeping toward you. It's a predator at full sprint. If you hesitate, it will catch you. The surge is being fueled by erratic wind patterns, and the heat is creating something called a fire corridor. That's when the flames concentrate into a narrow path, burning hotter and faster than usual. These corridors act like highways for the fire, and once you're in one, it's nearly impossible to get out. Your best chance is to avoid them altogether. Look for areas where the vegetation is sparse or already burned. If you see dense growth ahead, turn back or find another route. Reports from nearby survivors indicate the fire is so intense that the ground itself is combusting. The soil, baked dry over months of heat and drought, has become fuel for the flames. It's not just trees and buildings burning, it's the earth. The air temperature near the blaze is reportedly hot enough to sear exposed skin, even from a distance. If you're anywhere near this zone, you need to keep as much space between yourself and the fire line as possible. And it's not just the fire you need to worry about. The heat has started to destabilize local infrastructure. Bridges and overpasses are failing as the metal expands and warps. Roads that seem clear one moment might collapse the next. If you're on the move, test every step carefully. Wooden structures are even worse. They ignite almost instantly in these conditions. Don't trust anything that's been exposed to the heat for too long. I've received fragmented transmissions about other dangers as well. Heat-induced storms are forming near the leading edge of the fire. These aren't ordinary thunderstorms. They're chaotic, unstable, and unpredictable. Lightning strikes are being reported, igniting new fires faster than anyone can respond. The combination of wind, heat, and electrical activity creates a perfect storm, literally. If you see clouds forming overhead and the air feels charged, take cover immediately. Remember, the fire doesn't travel in a straight line. It jumps. It leaps across barriers you thought were safe. A single ember carried on the wind can start a blaze miles ahead of the main fire. Just because you don't see the flames yet doesn't mean they're not coming. Stay alert. Watch the skies. If you see ash falling or feel the air getting hotter, it's already too close. The last report I intercepted described something I can only call terrifying. Witnesses near the fire surge said they saw what they described as walls of flame moving with the wind. Not just fire licking at the edges of trees, but entire sheets of flame racing across open fields. These walls are a product of the fire's intensity, feeding on the dry landscape and oxygen-rich air. They're unpredictable and deadly, consuming everything in their path in seconds. This isn't hyperbole, and it's not meant to scare you. It's reality. If you're hearing this, I need you to understand the seriousness of what's happening. Fire doesn't just burn. It consumes, it devours. It doesn't stop to think or hesitate. You can't reason with it, and you can't outrun it forever. Your only choice is to stay ahead of it, to be smarter and faster than the flames. Keep moving, and if you can, help others do the same. Not everyone has the same ability to react, to adapt. If you see someone who needs help, and it's safe to do so, lend a hand. But remember, survival comes first. There's no shame in prioritizing your own life when the world itself is burning. The surge is expected to continue moving northeast, but fire patterns are notoriously difficult to predict. Winds can shift without warning, and what seemed like a safe direction one minute can turn deadly the next. Never assume you're in the clear. Always have an escape route in mind, and don't let your guard down. If you're listening from a region outside the surge, take this as your warning. Just because the fire isn't knocking at your door doesn't mean it won't be soon. These blazes are relentless, spreading faster and farther than anyone thought possible. No one is completely safe. Prepare yourself now while you still can. This is your reality. It's brutal, it's unforgiving, but it's not unbeatable. The fire is a force of nature, and like any force of nature, it follows patterns, can be anticipated, can be survived, but only if you stay aware, stay cautious, and keep moving. This is Station F, and I'll keep bringing you updates as long as I'm able. Stay sharp out there. The fire doesn't wait, and neither should you. Let's talk about the air, the very thing we need to survive, but which now feels like it's trying to kill us. Breathing isn't what it used to be. It used to be automatic, effortless, something we didn't think about. Now, every breath is a gamble, a risk we have to calculate. The fires have transformed the air into a toxic cocktail, thick with smoke, ash, and chemicals released from everything that's burning. This isn't just wood and grass going up in flames. It's plastics, metals, industrial debris, all of it vaporized and sent into the atmosphere. The air around the fire zones has become a poison, invisible but deadly. If you're in an area where the smoke is heavy, you've already felt it. The scratch in your throat, the burn in your chest, the way it feels like every breath is coated in sandpaper. It's not just discomfort. It's your body warning you that the air you're taking in is full of particulates too small to see but dangerous enough to kill. These particles get deep into your lungs and from there into your bloodstream. Short exposure might make you cough, give you headaches, or make your eyes water. Prolonged exposure can cause dizziness, confusion, and in some cases, unconsciousness. If you're feeling any of these symptoms, you need to find cleaner air as soon as possible. That's easier said than done, I know, but it's your best chance to stay functional. Some of you might have makeshift masks, scarves, or other coverings. They help, but only to a point. Basic fabric can block the ash you see, but it can't stop the microscopic particles, the ones that do the most damage. If you have a real respirator, use it. If you don't, your goal should be to minimize how much of this air you take in. Stay low if you can, but not so low that you're breathing in the heaviest concentrations of ground-level smoke. Remember, the air isn't just dangerous near the fire zones. The smoke can travel for hundreds of miles, carried by winds you can't predict. Even if the flames are far from you, you're not safe from the air they've corrupted. If you're seeing a haze on the horizon or noticing the sun looks redder than usual, that means the smoke has reached you. Don't ignore these signs. One of the more insidious aspects of wildfire smoke is how it masks other dangers. It dulls your senses, making it harder to notice things like the smell of leaking gas or the faint sounds of collapsing structures. Your perception narrows as your body fights to process the air you're giving it. That's why you need to stay alert, even when everything feels overwhelming. If you're sheltering indoors, there are steps you can take to improve your air quality, though none of them are foolproof. Seal every crack, every window, every door. Use wet towels or blankets to block drafts where the smoke might creep in. If you have any kind of ventilation system, shut it down unless it's equipped with proper filtration. That fresh breeze you're hoping for could be carrying toxins you can't afford to breathe. Water can be a powerful ally here. If you have access to clean water, soak a cloth and keep it over your nose and mouth. The damp fabric can trap some of the particulates, giving your lungs a break. But be careful not to saturate it to the point where you can't breathe at all. Balance is key, and that's something you'll have to figure out in the moment. I need to emphasize something else. The danger doesn't stop when the smoke clears. Just because the air looks clean doesn't mean it is. Particulates can linger long after the visible haze is gone, and they're just as harmful. If you're outside and the air suddenly seems better, don't drop your guard. Keep your mask on, keep your precautions in place, and assume the worst until you're sure otherwise. For those of you near industrial areas or places where buildings have been burning for days, there's another layer of risk. The materials in those structures, things like insulation, roofing tar, and treated wood, release toxins when they burn. These aren't just particles. They're chemicals, and they can do lasting damage to your body even with limited exposure. If you're near one of these zones, get out. There's nothing they're worth staying for, not at the cost of your health. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I also can't sugarcoat the reality of what we're dealing with. The air is hostile, plain and simple. Every breath we take in these conditions is a small act of defiance, a reminder that we're still alive. But defiance without caution is just recklessness. Protect yourself however you can. This isn't just about surviving the moment. It's about preserving your body, your mind, your ability to keep going. The fires are relentless, but they're not the only threat we face. The air around us has turned into another kind of predator, silent and invasive. Don't let it take you. Stay sharp, stay prepared, and above all, keep breathing carefully. Let me warn you about something that might save your life tonight. If you've managed to survive the flames and the smoke, there's still another danger waiting to strike when you least expect it. They're called ember storms, and they're one of the most unpredictable and deadly aspects of these wildfires. Imagine this. The wind shifts suddenly, carrying not just smoke but a torrent of burning embers, sparks that fly faster than you can react. These embers aren't just drifting harmlessly through the air, they're propelled by the force of the firestorm itself, each one capable of igniting whatever it lands on. A single spark is all it takes. One ember lands on dry grass, a stray piece of clothing, or even the side of a building, and within seconds, a new fire is born. These storms are like predators. They don't follow a straight line. They hunt wherever the wind takes them. You could be miles away from the main blaze, thinking you're safe, and then suddenly find yourself surrounded by a sea of embers. They fall like rain, lighting everything they touch. You can't predict when or where they'll hit, and that's what makes them so dangerous. If you've never seen an ember storm before, count yourself lucky. Those who have described it as apocalyptic. The air becomes a swirling mass of glowing particles, each one a tiny fragment of destruction. Visibility drops to nothing as the embers fill the sky, and the temperature around you spikes as if the fire itself has surrounded you. There's no direction that feels safe because the danger is everywhere at once. If you see an ember storm forming, don't hesitate. You don't have time to think, only to act. The first thing you need to do is find cover, immediately. Forget about outrunning it. The storm will move faster than you can. Look for something solid, something that won't ignite easily. Concrete walls, metal structures, even rock formations. Anything that can shield you from the onslaught. If you're caught in the open, your chances drop dramatically. For those of you already in shelter, be aware that ember storms test every weak point. The tiniest crack, the smallest gap, anything that allows air to flow can also let in embers. If you're inside, make sure your doors and windows are sealed tight. Use wet towels or blankets to block gaps under doors. If you have a way to ventilate without drawing air from outside, use it. Otherwise, stay put and hope your shelter holds. The real danger of ember storms isn't just the immediate fire they bring, it's what comes after. Fires created by embers tend to spread in all directions, creating smaller blazes that merge into larger ones. The chaos they leave behind is a nightmare to navigate, especially at night. Even if you survive the initial storm, the fires it starts can trap you, cutting off escape routes and turning safe zones into death traps. There's something almost deliberate about the way ember storms work. It's as if the fire itself has found a way to reach out and attack from a distance, to destroy everything in its path even when the main blaze is nowhere near you. It doesn't care about boundaries or obstacles. It finds a way. That's the terrifying part. You can prepare, you can plan, but the fire will always have the upper hand. If you're listening to this and you're already in the path of an ember storm, you don't have much time. Take stock of what's around you. Identify anything that could catch fire and remove it if possible. If you can't remove it, cover it with something non-flammable. Dirt, sand, even wet fabric if you have it. Your priority is to eliminate as much fuel as you can from your immediate surroundings. The other thing to keep in mind is yourself. Ember storms aren't just a threat to your environment. They're a direct threat to your body. Sparks can ignite clothing, hair, even exposed skin. If you have any way to protect yourself, layers of thick, non-flammable material, gloves, a hood, use it. Cover as much of your body as you can. Every bit of protection counts when you're facing something like this. And remember, the storm doesn't last forever. As terrifying as it is in the moment, it will pass. The embers will stop falling, the air will start to clear, and the immediate threat will fade. But the aftermath is just as critical. Once the storm has passed, assess your surroundings. Look for fires that may have started nearby and determine if you're still safe where you are. If not, move quickly. Ember storms are a reminder of just how relentless these wildfires are. They don't just destroy. They spread, they adapt, they find new ways to consume. The only way to survive them is to stay ahead, to anticipate their movement and react before they can overwhelm you. Tonight, as the fires rage and the winds carry their deadly cargo, keep your focus sharp. Ember storms are coming, and when they do, there won't be time for hesitation. Act fast, think smart, and remember, the storm may be fierce, but it's not unbeatable. Stay vigilant. Stay alive. Let's talk about water. If fire is the enemy you can see, water is the ally you can't live without. It's more than a resource now. It's survival, plain and simple. And I'm not just talking about staying hydrated, though that's critical. Water can be your shield, your escape, even your weapon against the fire. But only if you know how to find it and use it wisely. Right now, the landscape is parched. Rivers have shriveled to trickles. Lakes are evaporating, and the ground itself has turned to dust. The fires have taken more than just trees and homes. They've stolen the moisture from the earth. That means every drop of water matters, and you can't afford to waste it. If you're lucky enough to have a stash of bottled water, treat it like gold. Don't gulp it down just because you're thirsty. Take small sips, enough to keep your body functioning without depleting your supply too quickly. Your goal is to ration it to make it last as long as possible. And if you're running low, it's time to start thinking about where you can find more. Streams and rivers might seem like obvious sources, but they're not without risks. The ash from these fires doesn't just stay in the air. It falls, settling into the water. What looks clear might be laced with toxins, especially near areas where buildings or vehicles have burned. If you have any way to filter or boil the water before drinking, do it. Even something as simple as running it through a cloth can help remove larger particles, though it won't do much for chemicals. Natural springs are your best bet if you can find them. They're less likely to be contaminated and often flow even in drought conditions. Listen for the sound of running water. It's faint, but it's there if you're paying attention. Springs tend to form in rocky areas or at the base of hills, places where groundwater seeps to the surface. If you find one, take only what you need. That source might be someone else's lifeline too. Rain might feel like a miracle in times like these, but it's not without complications. The first rain after a wildfire is often acidic, carrying ash and debris from the burned landscape. Collect it if you must, but let it settle before drinking, and filter it if you can. A clean container can make all the difference. Even a piece of tarp stretched to collect rainwater can be a lifesaver. If you're truly desperate, there are other ways to extract water from the environment, though they take effort. In the mornings, before the sun has had a chance to burn everything away, you might find dew clinging to grass or leaves. It's not much, but it's something. Use a cloth to collect the moisture, then wring it out into a container. It won't quench your thirst, but it can keep dehydration at bay. Another method, though more labor-intensive, is to create a solar still. Dig a hole in the ground, place a container in the center, and cover the hole with plastic sheeting. Weight the center of the plastic with a small rock to create a slope toward the container. As the sun heats the ground, moisture will evaporate, condense on the plastic, and drip into the container. It's slow, but it works, and sometimes patience is the key to survival. You should also be aware of what not to drink. Standing water, especially near fire zones, is a breeding ground for bacteria and chemicals. Puddles, stagnant pools, even seemingly calm lakes. They're all risks. Unless you have the means to purify them, steer clear. The last thing you need is to trade dehydration for illness. Water isn't just for drinking either. It's your first line of defense if you're caught near a fire. Drenching a blanket or a piece of clothing and using it as a shield can buy you precious seconds to escape. Wetting your clothes can help protect you from radiant heat, though it's not a guarantee. Even a small amount of water can be the difference between life and death in those critical moments. If you're traveling, keep an eye on the terrain. Areas with dense vegetation might indicate a water source nearby, though they're also prime targets for fire. Animal tracks can sometimes lead you to water, as can certain plants. Cattails, for example, often grow near marshes or streams. Pay attention to the details. The signs are there if you know where to look. Water is life, even more so now than before. Without it, your body will start to fail faster than you realize. Headaches, dizziness, confusion. These are the early signs of dehydration, and if you're feeling them, you're already in trouble. Don't wait until you're desperate to start looking. Make it a priority every day, every hour. The fires may have taken much, but the world still holds its secrets, its resources. Water is one of them, hidden but not gone. Find it, use it wisely, and it will keep you moving forward. And in this fight, moving forward is everything. Let's talk about food. If you're hearing this, chances are you've already felt that hollow ache in your stomach, the gnawing reminder that you can't survive on water and determination alone. The fires haven't just destroyed homes and landscapes, they've taken our food sources with them. Fields are gone, stores have been ransacked, and even the wildlife has fled or perished. But food is still out there if you know where to look and how to make the most of it. Start with what you already have. If you've managed to salvage any canned goods, dry staples, or packaged food, treat them like a treasure. Canned foods are your best friend right now. They last for years, don't require cooking, and the liquid inside can double as hydration. Beans, soups, vegetables, whatever you've got, stretch it as far as you can. Eat just enough to keep going and save the rest. If your stash is running low or you've already burned through it, you'll have to start foraging. Even in the aftermath of a wildfire, there are things that can sustain you. Some plants are remarkably resilient, surviving right at the edges of burned areas. Look for dandelions, they grow just about everywhere, and the entire plant is edible. The leaves can be eaten raw or cooked, the roots roasted, and the flowers turned into tea if you have the time and resources. Cattails are another overlooked source of nutrition. If you're near a marshy area or a water source that hasn't dried up completely, you might find them. The roots can be boiled or roasted, and the young shoots are edible as well. They're not the most flavorful, but they'll keep you alive. Nuts are another high-calorie, easy-to-carry option if you can find them. Burned trees might still yield usable acorns, though you'll need to process them to remove the tannins. Boil them in several changes of water until they lose their bitterness. It takes time, but when you're desperate, every bit of effort counts. Be cautious when it comes to mushrooms. They can be a lifesaver, but they can just as easily kill you. If you don't know for certain which ones are safe, don't take the risk. The last thing you need is to survive the fires only to succumb to poisoning. Stick to plants and sources you can positively identify. If you're near a body of water, you might have access to fish or other aquatic life. Even shallow ponds can sometimes harbor small fish or amphibians. A simple fishing line, a hook fashioned from wire or a piece of scrap metal, and a little patience can provide a meal. If you can't fish, look for clams or snails near the water's edge. They're not glamorous, but they're edible. One of the hardest truths about surviving in a burned-out world is that you might have to eat things you never considered food before. Insects, for example, are a surprisingly good source of protein. Crickets, grasshoppers, even certain types of grubs. If you can get past the idea of eating them, they might save your life. Roast them if you can to improve the taste and kill off any bacteria. Don't overlook what might be hidden in the ashes. Sometimes root vegetables like carrots or potatoes can survive underground even when the plants above have been destroyed. If you're in a former farmland area, dig where crops might have grown. You might be surprised at what you find. When you're scavenging, always be aware of your surroundings. Burned areas are unstable, and the ground can give way unexpectedly. Hot spots can linger for days or even weeks, and stepping on one can result in serious injury. Move carefully, test the ground as you go, and never assume an area is safe just because the flames are gone. Cooking food might seem like a luxury right now, but it's worth the effort if you can manage it. Cooking can make certain foods easier to digest, kill bacteria, and even improve flavor. If you're starting a fire to cook, keep it small and contained. Use whatever you can to shield it from the wind and minimize the smoke. A large, uncontrolled fire is the last thing you need right now. Finally, let's talk about rationing. It's tempting to eat everything you have when hunger sets in, but that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Plan your meals, even if they're small. A handful of nuts, a piece of canned fruit, or a few bites of roasted plants can keep you going longer than you think. Eat slowly, savor what you have, and remind yourself that every bite is fuel for your survival. Food in the ashlands isn't abundant, and it certainly isn't easy to come by, but it's there if you're resourceful, cautious, and willing to adapt. Survival doesn't come with a menu, but it does come with options. They're not ideal, and they're rarely pleasant, but they're enough to keep you alive. And right now, that's all that matters. Let's face an uncomfortable truth. The fire isn't the only thing that burns. Desperation does, too. And when it flares, it can consume what's left of our humanity. You've probably already seen it, or worse, felt it creeping into your own mind. When survival becomes the only goal, it's amazing and terrifying what people are capable of. Human nature is a fragile thing. The fire strips away everything we built, the comforts and routines that kept us grounded. And when those are gone, when all that's left is instinct and need, some of us don't handle it well. Not everyone will be your ally out here. Some will see your survival as a threat to their own, and that's where things get dangerous. I'm not saying trust is impossible, but it's rare now, and it needs to be earned. The desperation of this world can turn a helping hand into a clenched fist in the blink of an eye. People aren't just hungry or thirsty, they're scared. Fear pushes people to do things they'd never imagine in a world that made sense. It's a raw, primal kind of fear, the kind that whispers, if they have what you need, take it. If you encounter someone out there, the first thing you should watch is their hands. An open hand means they might be asking for help, a gesture of vulnerability or peace. A closed fist, that means they've already decided what they're willing to do to survive. Don't let your guard down until you're sure of their intentions. That doesn't mean everyone you meet is dangerous, but you can't afford to assume otherwise. Approach cautiously, observe, and don't let their words distract you from their actions. People can lie, but their body language will give them away. A tense posture, shifting eyes, or a hand lingering near their pocket. Those are the signs of someone who's considering more than just conversation. You might wonder if it's worth it to help others at all. The answer depends on the situation. If you have the means to lend a hand without jeopardizing your own survival, do it. The world is dark enough without us turning completely against one another. But if helping someone puts you at risk, you have to weigh the cost. It's not selfish to prioritize your life. It's survival. Then there's the other side of this. The kind of people who aren't just surviving but thriving on the chaos. Looters, raiders, those who see the end of the world as an opportunity instead of a tragedy. They're out there, and they're dangerous, not just because of what they take, but because of how far they're willing to go to take it. The fires have created a landscape with no rules, no laws, no one to enforce order. And some people thrive in that kind of environment. They see the ash-covered world as a playground, where the strongest or the cruelest get whatever they want. If you come across people like this, don't engage. Avoid them if you can. They've already decided what kind of world they want to live in, and it's not one you want to be a part of. There's a fine line between caution and paranoia, and walking it is one of the hardest parts of surviving in this new world. Too much trust can get you killed. Too little can leave you isolated and without allies when you need them most. The trick is learning to recognize the difference between a genuine plea for help and a trap. It's not easy, and you'll get it wrong sometimes. But every mistake is a lesson, and every lesson is a tool for survival. If you're traveling in a group, you've got another challenge to deal with, keeping that group together. Tensions are high, resources are low, and everyone is on edge. Arguments can flare up over the smallest things, and if they're not resolved, they can spiral into something worse. Clear communication, clear boundaries, and a clear plan, those are your best tools for keeping your group intact. And don't underestimate the importance of trust within your group. If you're with people you can rely on, people who've proven themselves, hold on to them. That kind of bond is rare, and it's worth more than any food or water you might find. But if someone in your group starts to act erratically, if their desperation turns dangerous, you have to make hard decisions. Your safety and the safety of the group comes first. Desperation makes monsters of us all, but it doesn't have to win. Every choice you make, every time you choose to help rather than hurt, or to protect rather than prey, you're fighting against the fire in more ways than one. The fire isn't just in the world around us. It's in us, too, threatening to consume what makes us human. But here's the thing about fire. It doesn't burn forever. It runs out of fuel eventually. The same goes for the fear, the desperation, the madness. They're intense, yes, but they're temporary. If you can hold on to your humanity through the worst of it, you'll find yourself on the other side, still standing, still human. And in a world like this, that's worth fighting for. The world is speaking to us, always has been, even now, especially now. The fires may have taken away our sense of control, but they haven't silenced the planet. If anything, nature is louder than ever, sending out signals to anyone paying attention. Survival isn't just about strength or speed, it's about awareness. The more you listen to the world around you, the better your chances. Start with the birds. If you're lucky enough to still hear them, their patterns can tell you more than you realize. Birds don't stick around where danger lingers. If they fall silent, it's your first warning that something is wrong. Maybe it's a predator, maybe it's the fire, or maybe it's something else entirely. Either way, silence means you need to be on high alert. The wind is another messenger, though its language is harder to decipher. In normal times, a breeze might be refreshing, something you'd welcome. Now it's a harbinger. Hot, dry winds mean the fire is close, even if you can't see it. And if the wind shifts direction suddenly, it's not just changing, it's carrying the fire with it. Pay attention to the temperature of the air, the way it moves. If it feels wrong, it probably is. Then there's the smell. Smoke carries more than the scent of burning wood. It carries the story of what's burning. Dry, acrid smoke means vegetation is on fire. If the smell is more chemical, like burning plastic or metal, you're near a zone where homes or industrial structures are burning. That kind of smoke is more than unpleasant, it's toxic. Your nose can warn you long before your eyes can confirm it. The ground itself can be a warning if you know how to read it. In areas where the fire has already passed, the soil may look stable but could be smoldering just beneath the surface. Hot spots can linger for days, even weeks. Step in the wrong place and you could find yourself with burns that slow you down or worse. Test the ground with a stick or something similar before putting your full weight on it. The trees, or what's left of them, are another clue. Watch how they behave. If you see leaves or branches falling even without wind, it means the fire is weakening them, even at a distance. Trees that look stable can come down with little warning, especially when the roots have burned away. Never linger under them, no matter how tempting the shade might be. Look to the animals if you can find them. Like birds, they're more attuned to danger than we are. If you see animals moving in groups, pay attention to the direction they're going. They're likely fleeing something, and their instincts are sharper than yours. But don't follow blindly. Animals don't have the same barriers we do. They'll go places we can't, like through dense undergrowth or over unstable ground. Use their movement as a guide, not a guarantee. The fire itself has its own set of signals, though they're more menacing than anything else. The color of the flames can tell you a lot. Bright orange and red flames mean it's mostly burning vegetation or wood. Blue or green flames, though, they're a different story. Those colors mean chemicals are in the mix, and that's not something you want to be breathing or anywhere near. The sky can be both a warning and a trick. Thick black smoke usually means the fire is close, but don't let a clear sky lull you into complacency. Just because you don't see the smoke doesn't mean you're safe. Wind can carry the smoke away while the fire still moves toward you. A red or orange tint to the sky is another giveaway, even if it's faint. That glow means the fire is close enough to reflect off the atmosphere. If you're near water, pay attention to its behavior too. Rivers and streams can act as barriers to the fire, but they're not foolproof. Wind can carry embers across them, starting fires on the other side. And if you notice fish acting erratically or dead fish floating, it's a sign the water has been contaminated, likely by ash or chemicals. It might not be safe to drink, even if it looks clear. The world has always been full of signs, but now they're more than just curiosities. They're survival tools. Every sound, every shift in the wind, every flicker of movement in the corner of your eye is telling you something. The trick is knowing how to listen, how to interpret the signals before it's too late. Nature doesn't lie, and it doesn't sugarcoat. It gives you the truth, raw and unfiltered. The fires have stripped away the distractions, leaving only the essentials. Pay attention to the world around you, and you'll start to see the patterns, the warnings. They're there, waiting for you to notice, to act, to survive. Let's talk about something that sounds like it belongs in a nightmare, but is all too real. Fire tornadoes. If you haven't seen one yet, count yourself lucky. They're as terrifying as they sound. a phenomenon born from the chaos of this burning world. A fire tornado isn't just fire. It's fire with the power of the wind behind it, spinning into a vortex of destruction that moves faster than anything on the ground can follow. Picture it. A column of fire twisting upward into the sky, sucking in everything around it. Heat, ash, debris, even entire trees get pulled into the vortex, fueling it as it grows. These aren't small, fleeting things either. The largest fire tornadoes can reach hundreds of feet into the air, spinning at speeds you can't outrun. They destroy everything in their path and leave nothing but scorched earth behind. What makes them even more dangerous is how they form. Fire tornadoes are born from the intense heat and wind created by large-scale fires. When the heat rises rapidly, it creates an updraft, pulling air and flames upward. As the winds shift, they start to spin, creating a vortex. Once it forms, it feeds itself, pulling in more air and heat, growing larger and more destructive. The scariest part? They can form without warning. 1 minute you're dealing with a regular firestorm, and the next, the flames are spinning into something alive. If you're anywhere near a fire tornado when it forms, your first priority is to get away. There's no fighting something like this, no standing your ground. The only way to survive is to put as much distance between you and it as possible. Distance is your best defense, but it's not always enough. Fire tornadoes don't follow predictable paths. They're not bound by the same rules as regular winds or fire. They can change direction suddenly, move faster than you expect, and cover more ground than you think. If you see one forming, don't hesitate. Start moving immediately, and don't stop until you're sure it's gone. You'll know a fire tornado when you see one, but there are signs to watch for if you want to avoid getting caught off guard. If you notice the fire moving erratically, with sudden gusts of wind and swirling ash, that's a warning. The air around a forming fire tornado becomes turbulent, almost electric. You might feel a sudden pressure change, like the air itself is being sucked away. If any of these signs appear, don't wait to see what happens next. If you're caught in a situation where escape isn't an option, your best bet is to find low ground. Fire tornadoes feed on heat and updrafts, so being below their main path can sometimes save you. A ditch, a depression in the ground, anything that puts you out of the direct line of fire can increase your chances. Cover yourself with anything non-flammable, dirt, rocks, even wet fabric, and stay as low as possible. But let's be clear, this is a last resort. If you can move, move. Fire tornadoes consume oxygen as they spin, creating a deadly zone around them where breathing becomes impossible. Even if the flames don't reach you, the lack of air can kill you just as quickly. One thing people don't often realize is that fire tornadoes don't just destroy, they scatter. Embers, ash, and debris are thrown out in every direction, creating new fires far from the original blaze. This means that even if you're miles away, you're not safe. The debris thrown by a fire tornado can travel farther than you think, starting new dangers where none existed before. They don't last forever, but the damage they leave behind is catastrophic. Entire areas can be leveled in minutes, reduced to nothing but ash and rubble. Roads become impassable, safe zones vanish, and the landscape itself changes. If you've ever thought you had time to stop and rest near a fire, let this be your warning. Fire tornadoes don't wait. They don't give second chances. The terrifying truth is that fire tornadoes are becoming more common. The conditions we're living in, high heat, dry air, and intense winds, are perfect for their formation. They're no longer rare phenomena. They're part of the new normal, another threat in a world already filled with them. If you're hearing this and thinking it sounds impossible, I wish I could tell you otherwise. But this is our reality now, one where the rules have changed and the dangers have multiplied. Fire tornadoes are real, and they don't care about anything in their path. Stay alert, stay aware, and never underestimate the power of the fire. It's not just a force of nature anymore. It's evolving, finding new ways to reach us, to test us. Fire tornadoes are just one example of how far it's willing to go. Surviving them isn't easy, but it's possible. And in this world, possible is enough. The longer you stay in the shadow of the fire, the more it finds ways to crawl inside your mind. It isn't just the heat or the smoke or the relentless hunger that breaks you. It's the silence that creeps in between, the way the world feels too big and too empty all at once. Out here, the fire doesn't just burn the land. It burns away your certainty, your sense of what's real and what's not. You've probably felt it already, even if you haven't recognized it for what it is. The way the smoke makes shapes that shouldn't be there, faces in the billows, movement in the haze. Your mind wants to make sense of what you're seeing, to turn chaos into something familiar, even if it's wrong. But these shadows, these tricks of the fire, they're not real. They're just the echoes of your own fear, projected onto the smoke and ash. Fear is powerful. It doesn't need much to take hold. A flicker of movement, a sound that doesn't belong, the feeling of being watched when you know you're alone. The fire creates the perfect conditions for it, amplifying every small uncertainty until it becomes something you can't ignore. You'll start second-guessing yourself, questioning what you've seen, what you've heard. Was that a branch cracking? Or something worse? Was that figure in the distance a person, or just another illusion? Your senses are already working overtime, trying to keep you alive. The constant strain dulls them, makes it harder to tell what's real and what isn't. Your eyes catch something in the corner of your vision, but when you turn, there's nothing there. Your ears pick up a sound, faint and distant, but it vanishes as soon as you try to focus on it. The fire makes the world feel alive in ways it shouldn't, as if it's watching, waiting. And it's not just what you see or hear, it's what you feel. The heat pressing down on you, the weight of the air, the way the ground seems to shift beneath your feet. It all adds to the sense that something is wrong, that the fire isn't just a force of nature but something more, something with intent. Your rational mind knows better, but fear doesn't listen to reason. The longer you're out here, the worse it gets. Sleep becomes a luxury you can't afford, and with every hour you stay awake, the shadows grow darker, the sounds sharper. Your mind starts to turn against you, filling the silence with whispers, memories, things you've tried to forget. You start to wonder if the fire is doing more than burning the land, if it's burning through you too, leaving nothing but ash where you used to be. This is the real danger of the fire's shadow. It doesn't just threaten your body, it threatens your will. Survival isn't just about food and water and avoiding the flames. It's about holding on to who you are, what you are. It's about refusing to let the fire take more than it already has. So what do you do when the shadows creep in? How do you fight something you can't touch, can't see, something that lives in your own mind? The first step is recognizing it for what it is. Those shapes in the smoke, those whispers in the silence, they're not real. They're tricks, illusions born from fear and exhaustion. Acknowledge them, but don't give them power. Ground yourself in what's real. Focus on the things you can touch, things you can prove. The feel of the earth beneath your feet, the sound of your own breathing, the weight of something solid in your hand. Remind yourself that you're here now, alive. Fear wants to pull you into the shadows, but reality is your anchor. If you're traveling, make note of landmarks, even small ones. A burned tree, a stretch of unmarked ground, anything that helps you mark your progress. The fire's chaos makes it easy to lose your sense of direction, to feel like you're going in circles even when you're not. Landmarks give you something to hold on to, a way to remind yourself that you're moving forward, not backward. And if you're with others, lean on them. Talk, even if it's just to fill the silence. Share what you're feeling, what you're seeing. Fear thrives in isolation, but it weakens in the presence of connection. If you're alone, speak out loud to yourself. It might feel strange, but hearing your own voice can help break the hold the shadows have on your mind. Remember this, the fire doesn't care about you. It's not alive, not conscious, not hunting you. It's a force of nature, nothing more. The shapes you see in the smoke, the sounds that don't belong, they're not the fire's doing. They're yours. They're the product of a mind pushed to its limits, a reminder that you're human, that you feel, that you think. In the end, the fire can only take what you let it. It can burn the land, the air, the world around you, but it can't touch your mind unless you open the door. Keep that door closed. Hold on to yourself. Hold on to what's real. Because as long as you do, the shadows don't win. And in a world like this, that's everything. The fire may not burn forever, but what it leaves behind is a world unrecognizable, raw and exposed. You've been fighting to survive in the moment, every decision focused on keeping yourself alive for one more day. But sooner or later, you'll have to face the question, what comes next? What do we do after the flames die down, after the smoke clears? How do we rebuild in a world that's been stripped bare? The first thing to understand is that there's no going back. The world as it was is gone. The forests, the towns, the homes, they're ash now, and no amount of wishing will bring them back. The landscape has changed, and so have you. Survival isn't about returning to what was. It's about creating something new, something that fits this scorched reality. The land itself will be one of your first challenges. Fire doesn't just burn the surface. It changes the soil, makes it hard and unyielding. Areas that once grew crops may no longer support life, at least not for a long time. But there's potential in the ashes, too. The nutrients locked in the burned vegetation can slowly renew the earth, given time and the right conditions. You'll need to learn to work with the land as it is now, not as it was before. Water will still be a priority, even after the fires are gone. Burned landscapes are prone to erosion, and the first rains can turn the ash-covered ground into rivers of mud and debris. Streams and rivers may be polluted for months, even years, with chemicals and ash washing into them. Finding clean water will be an ongoing struggle, and you'll need to think beyond immediate needs. Collecting rainwater, digging for springs, or even finding ways to purify what's already there. These will be skills as essential as breathing. Food, too, will remain a constant battle. The animals that survived the fires will be scattered, their habitats destroyed. Plant life will return, but it will take time, and what grows first may not be edible. You'll need to forage, hunt, and eventually cultivate your own sources of food. Start small. Learn what plants can thrive in burned soil, which ones can grow quickly, and how to protect them from the elements and other survivors. Shelter will be another immediate concern. The homes and structures that survive the fire may not be stable. Wood weakens when it burns, even if it doesn't collapse outright. Metal warps, foundations crack. If you're staying in a structure, inspect it carefully before you trust it. Look for signs of instability. Listen for groaning or creaking. If something feels off, it probably is. Building new shelters will be an exercise in simplicity. The materials you once relied on, processed wood, concrete, brick, may not be available. You'll need to look to the land for what you can use. Stones, mud, even scavenged scraps can be turned into something functional. It won't be comfortable, but comfort isn't the priority anymore. Survival is. Community, or the lack of it, will shape what comes next. If you're alone, you'll have to decide whether to stay that way or seek out others. Both paths have risks. Isolation means you rely only on yourself, but it also means you don't have to worry about betrayal or conflict. Joining a group offers shared resources and protection, but it also brings the challenge of trust, of navigating the complex web of human needs and emotions in a world that stripped us all raw. If you do choose to be part of something larger, tread carefully. The rules of the old world don't apply anymore, and the groups that form now will be shaped by the strongest, the loudest, or the most cunning. Look for people who value cooperation over control, who understand that strength comes from unity, not domination. Technology, what little of it remains, might give you an edge, but it won't save you. Generators need fuel. Radios need power. Tools need maintenance. The fire has shown us how fragile our systems are, how easily they crumble. The gadgets and machines we once relied on are luxuries now, and luxuries don't last. Learn to do without them, and when you can use them sparingly. What comes next isn't just about surviving the aftermath. It's about defining what kind of world you want to live in. The fire took so much, but it didn't take our ability to choose, to adapt, to build something new. That's what it means to be human, isn't it? To take destruction and turn it into creation, to find hope in the ashes. The road ahead won't be easy, and it won't be fair. The scars the fire left on the land will be matched by the ones it left on you. But scars are proof of survival, proof that you endured. They're a reminder that even in the face of all this, you're still here. And as long as you're here, there's a chance to make something of what's left. The world isn't what it was, and neither are you. But that doesn't mean it's over. The fire has burned, the old has fallen, and now it's up to us to decide what rises from the ashes. What comes next is uncertain, but it's ours to shape. And that's something the fire can never take away. We've come to the edge of another broadcast, and if you're still listening, it means you've made it through another hour, another stretch of this relentless trial. Survival isn't measured in years or months anymore. It's measured in moments, breaths, and choices. Each decision you've made has brought you here, to this frequency, where my voice reaches through the chaos to remind you of what's possible. The fire wants to erase everything. It consumes without thought, without purpose, leaving only ash in its wake. But you're still here, still moving, still resisting. That alone is an act of defiance, a refusal to let the flames have the final word. Survival is not just about enduring. It's about standing tall in the face of destruction and saying, "Not today." I've been thinking about what it means to endure something like this, to live in a world so fundamentally changed. The fire has taken so much: homes, landscapes, people, but it hasn't taken everything. It hasn't taken the things that make us human, the things we carry inside. Courage, resilience, hope. They're still here, flickering like embers waiting for a chance to ignite into something stronger. You've heard me talk about water, food, shelter, and the dangers that surround us, but there's something just as important as all of those. It's the will to keep going, the belief that somewhere, somehow, this fight is worth it. That's what separates those who survive from those who don't. It's not strength or skill alone. It's the refusal to give up, no matter how impossible the odds seem. Out here, you'll face things you never imagined. The fire isn't just a destroyer. It's a mirror, showing us who we really are. It strips away the distractions, the comforts, the illusions, and leaves us with only the truth. Sometimes that truth is hard to face, but it's also what makes us stronger. You've probably had moments where you doubted yourself, where you wondered if you could take another step, draw another breath. That's normal. Doubt is part of the process, a shadow that walks beside you. But here's the thing: every time you choose to move forward, even in the smallest way, you prove that doubt wrong. You show it that it doesn't control you. As you look around at this world, scarred and broken, it might be hard to imagine a future. But think about this: fire is destructive, yes, but it's also a force of renewal. In the natural world, some seeds only sprout after a fire, their growth triggered by the heat. The landscape we see now, blackened and barren, will one day begin to heal. Life finds a way, and so do we. If you're hearing this, you're not alone. Somewhere, someone else is listening, breathing, surviving just like you. This broadcast isn't just a voice in the dark. It's a thread connecting us, reminding us that even in isolation, we're part of something larger. Survival isn't just individual, it's collective. Every choice you make to keep going adds to the network of life still clinging to this scorched earth. Think about the people you've lost, the memories that now exist only in your mind. They're not gone, not really. They live on in the choices you make, the way you carry their lessons, their love, their stories. You honor them by surviving, by finding meaning in this struggle. The fire may have taken them from your side, but it can't take them from your heart. When you look up at the sky, it might seem like the world is closing in, the ash and smoke blotting out the light. But behind that veil, the sun still burns, the stars still shine. The universe doesn't stop for the fire, and neither should we. There's still beauty in this world, even now. You just have to look harder to find it. Take a moment wherever you are to breathe, not just the shallow gasps of survival, but a deep, deliberate breath. Feel your chest rise and fall, the air filling your lungs. That breath is proof that you're still here, still fighting. It's the simplest act of defiance against a world that seems intent on crushing us. This isn't the end. It feels like it sometimes, I know, but as long as there's breath in your lungs, as long as you can take one more step, it's not over. The The fire will burn out, the smoke will clear, and when that happens, we'll still be here, rebuilding, reclaiming, remembering. If you ever doubt your place in all of this, remember that you've already made it this far. Every moment you've survived is a testament to your strength, your resilience. The fire has tested you, but it hasn't defeated you. You're still here, and that means something. This is Atlas, signing off from Station F. Keep moving, keep breathing, and above all, keep surviving. The fire may burn, but so do we. And as long as we burn, there's hope.